Hello and welcome to episode 2 of That Karate Podcast. My name's Liam Gallagher.
Mark.
Jesus Christ.
I just want to do it again. Hi, I'm Mark.
Okay, one more time. At this point.
No, we need to do this every week. That's it. We need...
I'm going to do that every week.
I thought that was a positive introduction.
Is this live?
Yeah. Oh. Okay, take 2. Hi there and welcome to That Karate Podcast, episode 2. My name's Liam Gallagher.
I'm Mark Slarry.
And I'm Sean McLaren.
And so it's good to have you all back. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you. We've come back for a second one. Some people listened, which was nice, and watched us, which was nice. We've had some decent feedback. That we'll soon wreck that after a couple of weeks. But
after a few intros like that.
After a few intros
is the Dinosaur joining us today, or is he?
There's no Dinosaur joining us today. There are no videos of the Dinosaur. I have been messaged continuously from last week wondering why your video's up of you kicking the wall, but there's no videos of me running about as an inflatable dinosaur.
That may be rectified today.
There's no video of me running about an inflatable dinosaur.
That may be rectified today.
I think that'd be good for our listeners too.
Is that why you asked me to let you share the screen?
I have my sources.
You have your sources. That's a bit worrying. Right. So today we're going to try. It's obviously gone to pieces already. We're going to try and structure it as best we possibly can. We kind of picked a topic for this week. Something I get asked a lot, and the lads get asked a lot, is the kind of topic of traditional karate versus sports karate. Sean's going to give us some news, which I'm now worried about because it appears to have something to do with a dinosaur. And we have an interview with Alistair Mitchell, Sensei Simitan of Borders Shotokan, a good friend of ours, which we're really looking forward to sharing that with you. We spoke to Alistair Sensei on Tuesday. And we've also got some questions from our audience. I think fans is pushing it. I think
Not yet.
Saying fans is maybe going too far. Maybe some interesting. Most of the questions actually we were kind of talking about earlier on. They could actually be episode topics on their own, but we'll kind of go to that later on. So right, so lads, I don't know how often you get asked the question, but traditional karate versus sports karate. What's your knowing our backgrounds in training?
Do you want to go first, Sean, or should I go first?
Mark, feel free to go first, mate.
I mean, personally, for my karate, I've always been traditional. I haven't really done much sport. With sport, I mean, I haven't done many sport competitions, probably about 2 or 3. I've always done the traditional style of karate. So I've always done, the Showa competitions. I've not necessarily, in my own karate, sort of gone down one route. So I've never sort of just practiced on kata or just kumite. I've always done everything. So I've done, the ki-on, kata, and the kumite. That's with regards to my karate. I mean, I don't really get asked the question that much now. I mean, I do see it a lot on social media that you do see that, there's this divide between the two. Yeah. And both do have their pros and their cons. I mean, with the hardline traditional karateka, they sort of say, sport karate is quite weak, they have pads on and this and that, this. I think once you get into a sport karate competition and actually get hit by one of them guys, you completely disagree. I mean, I've been put on my good few times. I mean, I've gone in with that mindset, they're only going to tap you. That is not the case at all. I mean, I've been looking up at the sky many a times, been swooped and then washigaried in the head or face many times. I mean, these guys are lightning fast. But yeah, I mean, for me, I am a traditional, but I think it's an evolving thing that I'm finding with karate. Sport is starting to get a lot more popular. I mean, if you're looking, in my personal, for my dojo before COVID, there was a lot more sport competitions out there than your Showa competitions. And I think they're a lot more popular because you can send your students there, and because of the protection aspect, your students ain't going there on a Sunday morning and getting a nose broke or big black eye. You know, they got these pads on, and they're getting the impact, but they're not doing as much damage. And I like sport competitions, and I'm once COVID is done and moved on, should I say, I'll be looking to take part in a lot more, and the ones that I have done I've really enjoyed. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, well, Mark said it all, so that's us for today, guys.
Well, I'll just get it out of the way, and then
he does never just say a bit of tea.
For all three of us came from a kind of traditional background, show weapon. We've all competed kind of abroad in show weapon competitions, and from the outside looking into the kind of sport karate, when I mean sport karate, I mean kind of competitions. We're all compete regularly or had done previous COVID, and we looked at sport, and as Mark said, we've competed in a team, in fact, in a sport event down in Essex, if I remember right, and we thought we went.
I couldn't have done that well. I don't remember it.
I thought I was going to get arrested. Yes.
Yeah, so we had that, as you said, Mark, that they're not going to get hit or they're going to score and it wasn't even touched, because we're from the show weapon background where it must hit touch to score, and it was kind of sometimes last man standing. We've been to competitions where there's no hand pads, it's just your cum shield, and but I think that's something of the past. I wouldn't like my daughter to do that. She loves competing. There was no way I would do that. I've got a family to look after, and go to my classes with, as you say, Mark, black eyes, or with the kind of sports. Flat. Yeah, exactly. With the kind of sport competition now, I'm talking personally, my karate and my kumite has improved drastically. Because you have to, if you want to keep up, if you want to continue competing, your karate has to get better. As you said, they're lightning fast, they're so athletic, and their range of techniques as well, for competition wise. And I'm all kind of talking about kumite, to be honest. I know.
I think you're right there. I don't want to just get
no, please.
Now, your point there is that, I mean, the kind of techniques, obviously, as we've discussed, older. The only was Shobo Sanbon came in as I was younger, but when you see the range and level of techniques that even the kids are throwing these days, because they've got the confidence to throw them in a competition environment, so it's letting the technique evolve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely.
You're just fear of just getting your that's a Scottish word for scared, by the way. I'll translate that out there. Just getting your face smashed in every time, especially as there's so many competitions are kind of kids competing. Again, I think the kind of safety aspect, I think Mark's right in that what people can talk about the pads. Well, you've got to look after your competitors. You've got to look after that. So carry on.
You've got to look after. You got to look after yourself. I mean, them white padded mitts that you used to use, and as Sean said, the days when you were doing it barehanded. I mean, you could. It's a thing of the past now. A lot has changed since then. And Sean, you touched on it there. I mean, my little boy, he's only 2, and I say the same thing. I don't want him to be put in an environment where he's going to be coming in and going to school, and the teacher's like, oh, why have you got a black eye? And that's why I think it's a really good, as you said, it's a great environment for your students to go into. And feel confident to test their technique and improve, because, like I say, I'm just talking about the kumite side of it for now, but the level of the fighting is unbelievable. I mean, as you said, Sean, your karate is improved, and we could see that when you kicked that ball earlier the other day. It was just a great kick. But yeah, I mean, they're lightning fast. And I mean, I actually dread to get hit by a sport karateka without me on. I dread to see the damage that you get with one of them. So.
No, I totally. With the way we're kind of talking about it, it's obviously we're coming from a traditional background. We're not saying there's anything wrong with show weapon competitions. I would love to go back and try a show weapon competition and kind of see where I stand from before, because I was pretty successful at show weapon when I was younger. I probably wouldn't be now, right enough. But so it's nothing that's wrong, and I've versed very, very athletic and skilled show weapon fighters as well. So we're not kind of dissing. I just weighing up the kind of difference, I think, from me competing in show weapon to a WKF format, for example, with the kind of 3 points for a head kick. I think it makes it a massive difference. And the thing with show whip on for me as well is you could get a head kick and it's you're done 10 seconds, either from a winning point of view or from a losing point of view. You go on, you prep for the fight, and in 10 seconds, that's it done. Whereas in the kind of sport competition, you have that chance to kind of come back and kind of experience the round a bit more. Now they're kind of 3 minutes or 2.5 minute fights. So, but obviously we're kind of talking from a community point of view as well. Liam, you're a bit more kind of experienced in the kata.
You said that, experienced, right? Okay,
in the kata.
I have a problem with the question that I get asked all the time, and it's traditional karate versus sports karate, because I don't see it as there can only be one. I don't. I've always had a problem with this, and this may come up as some of the topics we talk about today, and it's that you can only do one thing. You can only have one perspective. You can only have one skill set. Well, the instructor might only have one skill set. The coach might only have one skill set. Well, that limits your students.
Yeah,
I think Shobo Whip-On back in the day was a very good way of testing the kind of heart and the mentality of a competitor, if that makes sense. I do also think there was an awful lot of injuries out of it. I've got bits missing and broken and shattered ribs, and I've taken some absolute.
You look good for it, though. You still look good for it, sir.
It's the moisturiser. We'll tag it on at the end. I mean, we talked to Alistair Mitchell, Sensei, later on the episode, and you hear some of his stories. But I mean, we had a chance to chat to him afterwards as well. That the conversation afterwards was I wish I'd recorded that, and I switched it with the interview. But I've just always had this issue where you can only do one. I think that if you have a good base karate, as in you do the kihon, your basics, and you have your kata, and you have your groundwork, and you go through I think the traditional element, I think you still have, and I'm speaking, obviously we're Shotokan practitioners, so anybody that's out there who has other styles, please pitch in the comments. But if you've got that base, and then how you choose to compete, which is not real life. People talk about competition as if it's real life. It's not. In real life, there aren't 4 corner judges and a centre ref or a medic.
Nice
with mats, it's what is competition? What do you use competition for? For me, it was always a tool to test myself, to test my kind of heart, if that makes sense, more than it did. I mean, I was never a particularly talented fighter. I was never bad. I wouldn't humble brag or anything like that. I can scrap, but I was never going to be like a world champion. Don't have the height for it, because back in my day it was open weight. Never mind the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I was actually fighting Tyrannosaurus Rexes.
Yeah. Remember that open weight.
Funny when you're wee. So wee is a word for short for anybody listening elsewhere. I'm just translating it to Scottish.
I think we should add subtitles from my guys.
For the hard of understanding. So I've always had a problem with the question. I think that what sport karate has brought in, certainly for a competition, as Mark said, they're everywhere now, and they're all styles.
Yeah.
The Shobo Ippon situation, and this is just my perspective, are all usually kept, this is a Shotokan side, kept within the association. There's very few open Shobo Ippon events. All right, so they were mainly kept in-house at association level. So you're a big association, a big competition, which meant big competition breeds success, because the more people competing, the higher the level is, the standard is. Smaller associations are a smaller competition, and the standard's not there. So, I mean, Sean and I, we used to run in championships, and we ran it because we had problems finding competitions that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't because we enjoyed running that competition. We did not enjoy running that competition. Mark, you used to come to it. You enjoyed coming to it, but for us,
I enjoyed coming to it. But I could, I could see both of you were definitely stressed out. Yeah, I mean, I remember one time,
we used
to go away or something like that. When you was doing some paperwork or something like that.
I get the eyebrow comes up.
I tell you, there's plenty of stories where we were up to early hours in the morning, coffee just to keep getting the draws sorted, or I think one point the printer or the laminator or something packed it in, and a midnight run to Tesco was it, I think.
Yeah, we were printing out the draws, and the printer just decided it wasn't cooperating. It just wasn't playing. It just stopped. So Sean jumped in his car and just flew down to a 24-hour Asda picked up a printer and a pail of ink and brought it back. That was before we had computer systems that do it for us.
Yeah.
But the open events, so the likes of WKF or WKF or those different groups, they're open. So you can go to them, and obviously you have to be within the WKF framework to go to WKF ones, but that's a massive organisation, and WKF is open. So you're then bringing in a whole bunch of people to compete, and they are, quite frankly, financially viable to run. Therefore, that's why there's more of them.
Yeah.
And because there's more of them, more people competing, those that are competing in those ones are reaching a higher standard. And does that all make sense? So it all kind of clicks in behind it. Okay. I don't think that sports karate will ever take over from traditional karate. I don't think it can. I don't think it will. I think there's too many old farts like me that are they bang on about the 3Ks. And I don't think the traditional karate will ever kind of vice versa. I think they're two different things, and I think you can operate within both.
No, definitely. I totally agree with that. I think for me anyway, I'm maybe like a 5% of my club actually competes, so there obviously is other clubs out there that run clubs for competitions, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, teaching karate is not just something that I want to do for 5-6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and I don't want the student to just compete for 5 years, 10 years, So I think as you say, with the sport competitions, with the WKF sports, that the opportunities, I said sometimes you could compete a Saturday and a Sunday, and
not me, mate. I'm too old. You're getting one or the other. You're not getting both.
But for myself, I enjoyed that. The more chance to compete. I love competing. I love, as you say, testing yourself. I love finding out you do well, great. Don't do well, what can I do? What can I improve on that? My daughter loves competing as well. She loves competing. During COVID, she's really struggled without competition. So we've even done a couple of online competitions, but it's just not quite the same. That kind of facing. So yeah, I think as you said, they have to, or if you want to, you can have them working together. You can do your class Monday to Friday during the week, normal classes, and then still bring in that kind of sport element to your kind of committee classes or your kind of committee squad training or whatever you're doing. I think they can work together because.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think it's good to have an open mind and be down the middle of both of them. With sport karate, with the competitions, just mainly really what it is. It's great opportunity for your students and you improve, and your karate does get better on the mat. And then obviously the traditional side, you're working on your ki, on your basics, your kata, your one step, your juippon, and all of those things. And with that style, with more with the traditional side as well, you're going down that sort of the instructor sort of route. The more of the, I sort of think that, I don't know how to say it, but I mean, if you're a kumite athlete or kata athlete, you're not really teaching. You're sort of focused on yourself. If you're going down that sort of route, whereas if you're going down the traditional route, the chances are you're going to be a sensei, shall I say, or an instructor down that line in years to come. So I don't know. That's just my thought on it.
Yeah,
I think there can be a danger that sport becomes like, for me, sport. We come from a similar view. The sport side of karate is only a small part of what we do. Mm-hmm. Although we've got successful students and we've had success at competition level, and we've all represented our country at various stages. We've travelled the world and competed, etc. But as long as the training that you do in the class, as long as you are coming through that framework and having that structure, then there's a question we're getting asked from later on about long. A competition career is very short. So for me, although I've got no issues with sport karate, I really don't. But if that's all you've got, then your career is very short. So I think, I'm not sure if Alistair Sensei says it in the interview or the conversation afterwards, but if you're not winning, then you're not going to keep going. Karate is different things to different people. And I think I said this last week. That's the one thing I love about karate is that what karate means to you, to the person listening to this might be different. Although we're under the same name, karate, might have different visions of what it is. We might karate for self-defense, purely for bunkai and application. That might be your thing. we trained with Jamie Gray at the weekend. He did a cracking online session for us. We're interviewing Jamie in a couple of weeks. He would run into traffic before he did a karate competition. He would never train his guys for that. But he's a good karateka and he's got very valid points. To listen to his teaching, he's absolutely bang on. You know, we've got these different. We've got Ali Neoni, who's a very coming up with an unbelievable competitor in his competition career as well. But he comes with a slightly different perspective. But I think for me as running the club, so think about it as an instructor, I had to think, what is my job is to offer the best karate instruction I can possibly do and offer my students as much opportunity as possible.
I think that's the key word there, opportunity.
And I think it's also about the students. Now, I'm not going to give up teaching what I teach. We came up, I mean, we've tried to avoid, we've all graded in front of Mikio Yahara, for heaven's sake, who has, you know, as Bujitsu as it gets, you know, as Budo as it gets, you know, it doesn't get any, and he's phenomenal, I mean, absolutely a legend, an absolute legend. But there's another aspect to the training. My kind of road was just different because I just had different ideas of where I wanted things to go and where my karate was.
Yeah,
and I think that you need to give that kind of opportunity to people.
Definitely. Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's the same as well. Sorry, I'm just kind of using my daughter as a reference because she's kind of she enjoys the competitions, as I said previous, but she passed her Shodan last year or the year before, I think it was actually. And she was obviously, when it came up to the kind of gradings, and she was very focused. She loves learning new katas. And but when it got to when she got to the Shodan, she knew that she wasn't due to Nidan for another couple of years, you know. And obviously for us, we train because we enjoy karate, but for her, it was always kind of goal setting. She was setting herself goals every time. So with the Nidan, she knew that Nidan was at least a couple of years down the line, and she still done the advanced classes and was still learning the katas and the syllabus that she had to learn. But for her, competitions were a goal setter for her. You know, it was what's the next competition, when kind of improving on that, whether it be a technique or a combination or a kata for the competition. You know, so I think the competitions are great for that. You know, it kind of breeds that confidence and the goal setting and stuff that if you weren't competing, I think it'd be kind of hard sometimes to kind of fill that gap, I think, in my opinion.
I think it's good for the parents to see as well, that you're, as you said there, Sean, you know, parents want to see, I mean, some parents don't see their son or daughter training, you know, they drop them at the door and then, you know, in you go, oh, you're going with Sensei Sean, Sensei Liam, Sensei Mark, you're training with them. And, you know, then obviously you're traveling and then you're staying overnight in a hotel, and they want to see their son and daughter. They want to see how well and what they've learned, and that's what's great about competitions. And touching on what we said earlier, you know, sport karate is a great environment for you know, new competitors as well. You know, you think about Show Ippon, as you said, Sean, earlier. You know, you send your student in there. You know, let's say it's their first ever competition. Let's say their fourth kyu. You know, and then the student just Hajime and bounces along and does a Mawashigeri, knocks them cold out on the floor, you know, because they've got no leg protection, and that's not very good for the parents to see. Whereas that sports side is, and they're able to test their skills and they've got something to work to. Yes, definitely, yeah. So it's good on all levels. Good on all levels.
Yeah. Just kind of touching on that wee point there. Sorry. From the show Ippon point, if that's your first competition and you've been training, kind of you go in the first 10 seconds, you get a head kick and the fight's over. Say you don't get hurt. Obviously, you don't get hurt. In the younger ones, there was no kind of head contact. But you go in, you get beat, 10 seconds, you're out. You know, you've worked hard, and also that's a good kind of thing to work towards. You need to improve for that next time. But with the sport one, you get a kick to the head, you've got another minute and a half or another few more points to kind of practice what you've been practicing. So I just think especially for younger ones, I think the sport kind of setting of competitions it gives them more chance to grow, I think, as a competitor and as a karateka, kind of competitions wise as well, you know, and kata wise as well. And I think Sorry, on you go then. On you go.
No, I do think I've never had anybody walking at my dojo and I've asked them, "So why you want to join karate?"
Yeah.
I've never had somebody say, "I want to compete." I've never had that. Maybe you're different. Maybe you've had somebody else that's come in. I've had people maybe of higher grades that I've seen how a dojo is operating and like how a dojo is operating and transferred across, but they've already had that conversation somewhere else. So I think there's too much emphasis on this divide between sport and traditional. If I teach karate as the syllabus laid down by my organisation, and the type of competitions that we take part in happen to be sport-based because that is, then I don't see the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, Sean, how many people in your clubs actually compete?
5%, if that.
I mean, I'd maybe get the same, maybe 5 to 10% actually go to competitions. That's who actually compete. So I having that the level of competitions that we have is great for that 10%, and it's a great way for them to evolve. I personally think, and other instructors out there may disagree, I think everybody at some point should compete, whether you're successful or not, because it tests your mettle. It tests if what you think you know is right. So as you say, we came from I fought Shobo Ippon and I was dead against sport karate. Absolutely. If you'd spoke to me 10, 15 years ago, I would have spat on the floor, you know what I mean? That's
keep going.
But as I opened my mind up and looked at it, I can see the benefits of both. Those that talk about Shobo Ippon, they're right. What they're saying is that regarding how Shobo Ippon works and how it's maybe a more realistic framework because it's a one-hit bang job. That I get that. I totally understand that. But I also can see from how the sport element has added to what we do and the longevity of what we do, bringing in more sports science. Would you have discussed plyometrics 10 years ago teaching? You know, and explosive movement and sports science. That it's a whole different, but it all translates back to karate. And I think we get in your bubble. And then there's a funny thing that Alistair Mitchell Sensei says, I don't know if it was in the interview or the conversation afterwards, a lot of people that kind of go on about those kind of comps and never could actually fight in the first place. So the biggest detractors to competitions tend to be the instructors that never actually could compete or were successful and there's going to be comments now because I've said that. But I just find it difficult to hear. There's so much division within some groups.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so much fragmentation. It's about time we just all accepted we've all got slightly different views and move forward.
Yeah, be respectful to each other. Do you know that's
yeah. I mean, although I have again speaking as the old fart in the group. That's there's no translation in Scottish for that. That's exactly what you think it is. I've gone through different stages in my life. I've been training 37 years, so I was in a club that didn't do competitions when I was a kid. We had one competition a year. We had one inter-club a year. That was all we did. There was no outside competition. Then I had friends that moved on, joined another group who had more competition, so I kind of followed my friends. And all my friends stopped training. And then I kind of moved over to about later on where Sean and I met, almost 15 odd years ago. And there was competitions, but not a lot of competitions. There wasn't many open comps. You had to get in the squad and stuff, which I agree with completely. And it kind of developed from there. So, but I'm at the stage in my life now where I can see the benefit of it from my students. I occasionally compete because I want to have walk the walk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to detract. I mean, I'll go out and get an informed opinion as opposed to come in with an opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Already formed opinion from outside, and I'd rather take part in it and go, yeah, that's nonsense. I mean, I've got strong views on some things, which will no doubt come up at some point. But I don't see the issue in this. I think we can totally coexist. I don't think there needs to be clubs that only teach sport karate. That's a different conversation. What do you think about clubs that only teach karate for sport?
Do you want to do this one?
Just got that bag of steaming dog poo at your door there. There you go, boys. What do you think of that?
I don't see nothing wrong with it at the end of the day. No, I don't see nothing. I mean, every instructor has their own teaching style, their own perception of karate, their own teaching. It just, I don't see anything negative in it. As long as, every instructor is, giving their student the best, the best training that they possibly can give. I think that's very important. Giving 110%, then it doesn't matter really, in my opinion, whether they're just teaching sport karate or just traditional and hate sport, karate. I just think that it's, competitions and that are just small, like you said earlier, just a small drop in the ocean with what karate offers. And good luck to them, really. Good luck to them. If that's what they're gonna do, as long as they're doing it to the best thing, I'm fine with that. I think that's great. So, but what about you, Sean? It's a bit of a tricky question, isn't it?
No, I agree. I agree with you completely. Just for me, it's not, it's not the full. I think that's you're not offering what karate everything. So you've just picked one part of it. You've picked competitions, and that's it. So. We know clubs that do teach only for competition, and they're very successful, and the coaches are great coaches and their students are great, and we get on really well. So there's not, as you said, Mark, if that's what you want to teach, and as long as you're giving the best to the student, I just think for myself that I don't see a longevity in that. I don't see for me it would just be like, okay, so the students come in and they're going to compete for 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 years. When they start getting to senior, when they're looking at kind of jobs and careers, you're not going to have a chance to compete as often. So then you'll need to find that next group of competitors, and it'll just be harder to compete. I've got students, and Liam and you guys have got students that have trained with you for more than 10 years, and I'm sure they'll be continuing to train. Whereas if they're competition, and as you used to touch on it earlier, that Alistair Sensei said, if they're not winning, well, it's not as if they can go and focus on a grading or go and focus on something else. If your focus as a club is only competition, then you need to make sure you're doing well at that, So
I think it's about being honest about what you teach. If you are a sport karate club, I have no issues with you at all in the slightest. And as you say, we know some amazing clubs that are incredibly successful. Yeah. You've got Scotland. I mean, I'm speaking from a Scottish perspective. I apologise, Mark. You get a bit of a hard time off Alistair, I have to say. That you were getting. he's fiercely. Sorry, wait, you'll hear it. You'll hear the interview shortly. As long as you're honest about what you're teaching, right? And as I said, you're absolutely right. Scotland, again, we're speaking from Scotland perspective. There's clubs out there in Scotland as fantastic athletes. Like the young generation athletes coming through just now is phenomenal. There's so many. I mean, you've obviously got our association. You've got the likes of. Chris Ewan's group, you've got all these different groups in Scotland. They're producing these for top level athletes that are competing across the world, and these clubs are honest with what they do and how they develop it, and they're very successful. So how can you possibly criticise that? Yeah. I do think you're right regards to longevity. I think the real, again, I was going to talk too much out of Alistair since his kind of interview, is that the real test of a club is, do you have people that are 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old? Because if you do, you've got a club that caters to everyone. Yeah. If you've got a club that has 10 years old and 20 years old and nobody else, then you have a club that only, and that's fine. You have a club that only caters to that. And that's absolutely, like, there's no criticism there, but just be honest in what you're teaching and what you're coming across. As people who teach sport karate, for me, and there's not very many of them left, in fairness, most of them have kind of disappeared off it. Certainly, as karate became sport, I was kind of there at that point. I'm the only guy here that probably was alive before there was mobile phones.
You also said Jesus in the Last Supper as well, mate. So let's be honest.
Told him to bend his knee, mate, put his hand in his hat. So, so I'm not that old, guys. Oh my God.
You're a dinosaur.
Only on Saturdays. only on weekends. Where was I? You lost me. But the guys were making it sound like that translates to self-defense. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. You know, you training for sport and training for self-defense and training for traditional karate are three different things.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people teach traditional karate and talk about, you know, how it works for this, that, and this. It doesn't. It doesn't. The bunkai is nonsense. You like to see the likes of bunkai for some of the katas. A lot of it's nonsense. And it is, let's be honest. And you've also got people who teach karate as bunkai and application, but it's not karate. So there's just this kind of wide spectrum of people, if that makes sense. And we want to kind of, as long as you're honest about what you're teaching and you know what you're teaching, that's the real thing. Do you actually know what you're talking about? You know, certain things I'm not particularly, there's things I'm weak, which is why I ask other instructors to come in and teach at times, because as opposed to have a closed door policy, I'll bring somebody, like, that's not my strength. Any chance you come in and do a course for us or something?
So that's the best for your students, that's what it is, isn't it?
Well, that's it.
Yeah. I think if you, you know, if you sort of close your, you know, if you're blinking to it and you close the doors on yourself, you're sort of just going to stay at that one level. I think that it is good to open your doors and take input from different areas. So like with me, you know, I say I'm traditional background. I've been with you boys as well. You know, we're from that traditional, and you know, I'm slowly opening my doors to sport, and I welcome it. Like I say, it's, you know, as I said at the beginning, you know, people say, oh yeah, you know, our sport, you know, the big pads. It's, yeah, when you get hit or kicked by one of, it is not soft. It's not what is advertised on the tin.
The only difference is you can go to work on Monday. That's the only difference. Yeah. John, do you remember that competition we went to? We'll not mention names. I think it was in Germany, wasn't it? And There was no hand pads, and there was literally people, this is not an exaggeration, lying on stretchers.
It was two paramedics.
We're talking about sodomy, you know, skin contact, touch contact. There was no touch contact. There was nobody there that had any clue how to do sodomy. So there was just people, we're talking like teenage girls lying with like faces cut open. And we were like, we're from Glasgow, Sean and I was like, we could have stayed home and done this at the weekend outside a pub.
Mark's from Luton, so it's the same, didn't it? I'm sure it's not pretty different.
Yeah, I'm from Luton, so yes,
that's a Saturday night we're in Glasgow. That's just a weekend. But one of our friends actually got his spleen ruptured and had to get operated on. You know, so and then you walk away and go, they don't get me wrong, it's like there's some good war stories from that weekend. The German guy whose nose
their memories, aren't they? Their memories, but you know, there's not.
But I'm an adult. Yeah. I'm a grown man. I can make an informed decision to go in there and do that competition or not. When you're taking children, I mean, Sean was the coach in that trip, so you're taking children to a competition like that.
To be fair, the younger ones were better.
They were better, thank you. The adult section was.
It was just when I got to the seniors, it was just hand pads off, literally. But the younger ones, it was a good competition, so it wasn't like that. And as I said, I've been to plenty of show weapon where I've not been. It's not that you're going to go into a show weapon and you're going to get hurt. It's just It was just that type of competition, and it was that one hit finish kind of idea when it was like the ippon, and it was kind of obviously translating to. Some people thought it was kind of out in the street, one hit, and that was it. You know, so there have been many show ippon competitions and came away fine. You know, and versed some very very high level. Show weapon fighters that are now, some of them have actually fought in the WKF environment now as well.
Well, does that translate? Most show weapon events I look at now, you can tell that the top level ones have done WKF training or sport training, because they've got that kind of plyometric movement and that bounce. And when I grew up, there wasn't much bouncing. It was like putting the arrow back in the bow, and then it was like bang, first to hit. Which is great when you're 6'2" and your arms are 4 feet long. That's also funny when you're my height. A lot of blocking on my face, but yeah, but it's so even when you see the show weapon isn't what it was. What I was doing 30 years ago. Show weapon's completely different. Yeah, it's a completely different animal now. As you said, you either did no hand pads, or you used to have all the guys at my age will know the ones I'm talking about, the kind of Velcro. They're kind of, I don't even know what kind of material they were. They're kind of rough.
Like fabric ones, aren't they? Yeah.
There was that much, but the only good they were for was for mopping up the blood off the mat. Afterwards, you take them off, and they were absolutely no use. But we were always taught like skin contact, sodomy, on the back and pull back. That's how we were trained. But that was us. But the other guys were told like give it a dig and see what happens afterwards, see if the referee will accept it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think like teenagers, teenage boys specifically, and I don't mean to be misogynistic in this, want to scrap. They want to get that a controlled aggression, that controlled fight, and I think that needs to be in place for them, but they still need to be able to go to school on the Monday. I think competition's important. I think it's essential.
I think in kind of summary, I think these are just obviously our opinions. Please, guys.
Well, it's our show. We can say what we want. We don't like it.
No, it's just our opinions from kind of our experience and stuff as well, from being kind of traditional, moving into that sport. I'm still doing traditional karate. But please let us know your kind of thoughts in the comments as well, guys. But yeah, I think somebody is Mark touched, as long as you're doing the best for your students, as Liam said, he's bringing other people in and making sure that the students getting the best opportunity and they're safe and enjoying it and having fun and growing, then do your thing. You know, in my opinion, I think
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
I agree with that as well. I agree with that. And you know, if the question was asked, you know, we started this little bit here before we rattled off. You know, difference between sport versus thing. I mean, I think it's not the versus bit that we need. You welcome both. Welcome both, and well, we all do so, which is great. And yeah,
they've got to stop agreeing, boys. It doesn't make for good watching or listening. We need to get a fight here. We need to argue.
We do have a few questions though. You want to move on to that next, or we want?
Do you want to move on to the questions just now? Okay, we'll do that just now.
And I'm going to disagree with everything that you boys didn't do. So we'll start now then, yeah.
Like I just say for the record here, I said at the start, I'm waiting on an Amazon delivery at some point, and I'm not editing it out. So if that buzzer goes, I need to go and deal with it. All right, it's important. It's a moisturising product. Right. So Sean's phone keeps going. Must be all the new trials coming in. Right. So we've got some questions. And some of it kind of clicks in with what we've discussed, but we can maybe clarify our thoughts on it. Gordon Burns asks, what's your thoughts on training for competition versus training for self-defense scenarios? Sean, you go first.
You meant to come to me last, you know.
Sean, you're first.
I wasn't as good at blocking and show weapon, so I'm a bit slower to think.
That's very true.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's true. So I think we kind of touched on that earlier. I think as long as you know what you're training for, you know, and there is plenty of show weapon and plenty of WKF fighters that can handle themselves out in the street. You know how fast they can move, how hard they can hit. But as you say, when it's out in that, when you're taking away the four corner judges and when you take away the nice tatami and there's you or your partner, your friends are there for had a couple of drinks and your back's against the wall, will you lean back and do a urim wash? No, I can't go back and do a urim wash anyway. Yeah. But so yeah, I think as long as you know what you're training for and as long as you've kind of set that in your head, and I think that's where we kind of take that versus away with that traditional in sport. I think if you can merge them both, I think from a self-defense point of view, I think if you can get the best of both worlds, then you stand a better chance of defending yourself. Because at the end of the day, no scenario is the same. You know, you're even in a controlled environment in the club or in a controlled environment in the competition, it's not the same as self-defense. You know, I'm kind of lucky. I've been close a few times, but I've never actually been in a fight in outside. You know, so I've been close a lot of times, but managed to kind of.
Is it possible that you grew up in Glasgow and have never been in a fight?
Well, I'm one of the very few people in Milton that can read and write, and I've never been in a fight.
You're in a fight now.
Yeah, because people in no, I said one of the very few. I didn't say.
Need a new presenter next week, folks, because it's guaranteed Sean is done. All right, Sean will not be here next week. So if anybody would like to join the panel, take over from Sean, who's going to get a fight next week. Good relief.
Yes.
Better stick for your own back there, Sean.
Moving on before Sean, Sean has to fight off the hordes at the door. Mark, what do you think? So, what's your thoughts on training for competition versus training for self-defense scenarios?
I mean, training for self-defense is a bit tricky, isn't it? Because, I mean, how can you really train for self-defense? Yes, you've got your bunkai, you know, your different things. But, I mean, when you're fighting for self-defense, it never goes to plan. I mean, it's not like a Power Rangers movie as such, is it? Someone's going to do a roundhouse and you're going to throw them over your shoulder and they're going to be on the floor. It's never like that, because they've got one or two friends with them, and as you said, you've got your back against walls. So, I mean, yeah, training for self-defense is a little bit, you put the mats out and you're throwing each other over the shoulder, and you've got your locks and all this sort of stuff. But it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a tricky question. I mean, training for competitions is relatively easy, because, as you said, you've got 4 corner judges, and you've got, once someone hits or contacts with a technique, you've got a referee saying, yeah, mate. Yeah. So it's in the safe environment, whereas you don't have that. You don't have that on the street. You don't have that in the pub. You don't have that, in the park, walking with your missus if someone comes up. You don't have that, and, nowadays, everyone's got a knife and all this sort of stuff. It's a different kettle of fish now, isn't it? It really is. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say any more than that, really. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? It's a hard question to training for self-defense.
It's two different animals. They're two completely different. The only thing I think they have in common is, I mean, I've done some when I say self-defense training, a lot was about pressure testing and applying your technique under pressure. So competition does that.
Yeah.
And somebody who teaches kind of karate as bunkai application will also have a version of that as well. It's all about pressure testing and reacting under pressure. So in my mind, they're both linked there. Although the use of technique, you wouldn't, as you say, throw a hook kick, try that and suck a Hall Street in Glasgow and see what happens. So it won't go well. They'll think you're a ballerina and they'll just, you'll get a bottle of brew off the top of your head. So, but but where the link is pressure testing. So regardless of it's show upon sport competition or whatever it is, it tests your ability to deal with pressure. So if you ever stood in the mats, we've all competed where there's 1,000 people in the room, you've got all your peers are lined up next to you, you've got referee, that's pressure. Yeah. That's pressure. And you need to then, you're going to say, Mark,
I'm going to disagree with you now. So, I mean, yes, they've both got the pressure test inside of it, but one's a safe environment and the other one isn't.
But they're both safe environments, because I've been to self-defense. I'll be honest. This is maybe just the ones I've kind of been to. Most of the guys can't actually scrap. They're I don't think you can really teach. You can teach technique, but you can't teach fighting attitude. Does that make sense? That comes from consistent training. I find the likes of self-defense classes, like the 6-week self-defense courses, they give me the sweats, because you can't possibly learn the kind of muscle memory and reaction and etc. in a 6-week program. I think if you're training in traditional karate over a period of time, you'll learn how to punch, you'll learn how to kick, but then you can evolve into, does that make sense? As I said, I was trying to kind of, I put it badly earlier on. I've gone through different stages in my karate career. As a beginner, as a competitor, want to learn the kind of self-defense and learn the kind of application of karate and kata, and I've gone through different, and I think if you only concentrate on one, you're not going to be able to evolve. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If you only teach, I also wonder, some of the people, again, this is where people are going to get upset with me, I sometimes wonder what these people are training for. Is there a zombie apocalypse coming that I'm not aware of? Is there? I mean, we live in Scotland. I mean, I've grown up in some rough parts of Glasgow, and unlike Sean, unfortunately, I have had to roll about the concrete a couple of times, but I do wonder when I watch some of these self-defense classes and courses or people are doing them, like, where do you drink? If you're going to a pub where you need to train like that to be able to make it to closing time, pick a new pub. Do you know what I mean? So I sometimes grab and you twist and you break the arm. You're like, whoa. If that's what you want, join the armed forces. Leave, like, somebody bumps into you in a pub and suddenly you've got this poor granny in a headlock. It's just, I sometimes wonder what they're training for and what they know that I don't. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So
if I'm getting in the eye and all that.
Yeah, you're like,
stuff.
wow, just like, wow.
That's a tough question, though. So thank you, Gordon, for that tough.
Thanks, Gordon. To be honest, a lot of these, as we said earlier on, a lot of these are topics. We could actually find a full episode chat to these. Jason, this is a tough one. This is controversial. I like this one.
If it's controversial, I need to go.
Jason Sheridan.
I've got Amazon's coming in the minutes. Yeah, so.
If Amazon comes, I'll just walk off and come back. I didn't come in, but I've ordered. I don't know why I was supposed to arrive tomorrow. It's arriving today, so I apologise if the buzzer goes off. What is the future of sports karate? How will karate fare in popularity amongst popular disciplines like BJJ, Muay Thai, MMA, etc. in the future? So we'll go to Mark first.
Okay.
Can karate survive in the modern world?
So, I mean, we got the Olympics coming this year. So, I mean, they're not going to be doing the show whip on because otherwise, they'll be just, paramedics, on TV, but, I mean, that's sport karate. So, I mean, it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year for sport karate with the fact that it's going to be on the TV and the kids and the parents are going to be watching on TV. And they're going to be saying, right, I want to get my son or daughter into that. So it's going to be a very, very, very big year for sport karate and for karate in general. The people are going to be looking for those clubs that are doing that. So, I think sport karate will get bigger and bigger and bigger and evolve. And I think more people will eventually, change their perceptions ever so slightly. I'm not saying completely because you're never going to change everyone's mind, but I think ever so slightly, people will start adopting sport karate, into their framework. And what was the second back end of the question?
Well, it's just basically how does it fare? I think that the kind of crux of the question is with the likes of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is obviously becoming more and more popular the last few years. You get Muay Thai and you get MMA, which is obviously the mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
and those kind of fighting platforms. How does karate survive in popularity against these?
It's a tricky one. I mean, you've got Krav Maga and all these different close quarter contact trainings coming in. I mean, in the local sports hall that I've had, these groups are coming in. They're coming through, and I mean, I think karate will definitely survive against these. It's a massive platform, and I think we'll be okay. I really do think we're okay, and I really think that the fact that the karate now is on the main stage, which will be on the Olympics, will be a massive promotion for karate. Whether it's traditional sport, but in general, clubs are going to be looking to get to join these groups. I definitely think karate will be fine. I'll pass that question on to Sean or Liam. Which one do you want to take it out?
Why don't you go, Sean?
No, I agree, Mark. I think karate's been around for a long time, and obviously it's evolved.
Has it been around longer than Liam?
That's not possible.
Can I just point out that Alistair Mitchell Sensei, wait a minute, I'm just going to cut in here, right? Alistair Mitchell Sensei is with the greatest respect because he's older than me. Not one age joke was made to Alistair Mitchell Sensei. So I'd just like to say, you're a cup. No, I can't say that word. You two bottled it. All right? I'm just making the point.
And
right, moving on. So Sean, please carry on.
So karate has been. That's not going to stop us making jokes, by the way. So karate has been around a long time. I think, as you said, Mark, with being in the Olympics, it's going to help. Whether you teach sport karate or not, everybody's going to look for a very local karate club. So, and then the things like Cobra Kai, as much as I think the kind of fight scenes are maybe obviously choreographed, but it really helped popularity of karate. I think it made a big difference. Our students loved it, and me, my wife, and my daughter sat and watched it. I think stuff like that makes it helps the popularity. Where I think it's obviously kind of harder. You've got that teenager years. You kind of touched on it, Liam, where male or female, what want that kind of close quarter stuff and want that kind of maybe aggressive kind of martial arts. So they might want to go into something like MMA or maybe BJJ and kind of Muay Thai and kickboxing, where I've got a few friends that I used to train with that moved into Thai boxing because they done show whipping and they were the one getting disqualified. They were like, oh, why should I need to kind of control my techniques? If I'm out in the street, I'm not going to control my techniques. So they're from that other side, and they've had quite a successful time competing in Scotland doing Thai boxing, and they kind of always refer back to their kind of karate background as well. So even though you have these guys that are in the UFC as well, there's still, Conor McGregor's referred to as kind of karate, taekwondo, and the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Leo Tomachida, George St. Pierre, these people who are big in the MMA world always refer back to the kind of roots, whereas karate. So I think that'll kind of help as well, keeping karate going. I think if you want to do MMA or anything else, you need to have a mixed group. And obviously I think karate is very popular. I don't know how many people train in karate in the world. I don't know.
I think that the issue can be that, can I go fall into this question, is that karate is popular.
Yeah.
Karate is incredibly popular. I think it's the most popular martial art in the world. Is it commercial? Is a different thing. Just because it's on the television, and there's lots of money getting poured into it. As I say, I've been on, as you've very kindly pointed out, been on the go for a while, and I've seen different things come in, like points fighting came in, freestyle karate was a thing at one point, and there's all these different things, this different evolution. Karate's just kept doing its thing.
Yeah. Karate's
been there, and karate will always been there. Is it as commercially viable on television and on viewing platforms as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and MMA? No. But it will certainly always have membership because it appeals to people on different levels.
Yeah.
I have people that come to me I'm lucky, I have students 10 years old, 20 years old, up to in their 60s. I have students all the way through, and they all train for different reasons. The ones at a certain level are training for contact, training for competition, but there's different evolutions in your training.
Yeah.
So I've had adults who have trained that have come back to training maybe 10, 15 years afterwards. So I think that way will always be popular, regardless the Olympics, which will come and go. And I think you're right, that maybe take us more mainstream. But I've never thought that we weren't. I mean, we come from busy, successful clubs. We obviously, it's more, certainly from when I grew up, when I was younger, it wasn't so many kids in the classes. It was more the other way around. It was more kind of teens and up. But as the children are coming in now, but a lot of them are staying and kind of building up. So the WKF quotes 100 million people training karate, and that doesn't include those outside.
Yeah.
So that particular association. So it's a massive thing. Is it commercial on the television? The big issue that I certainly heard as they were piecing together the Olympics was educating the public on how scoring works.
Yeah.
And the reason the Shobo Ippon system didn't work, it was difficult. It wasn't that it wasn't a good system of competition. It was very difficult for a spectator to figure out what a point was, because those out here, because you have to remember, they're trying to appeal to those who don't train in karate.
Yeah.
So that's why you see all the frameworks that have come into karate, certainly the kind of sports side over the last kind of decade, as they prepared for the Olympics. What used to be, if you had pads, you had white pads on, and one pair, you had a red belt on or a white belt on, and it's all evolved from there. So the scoring system has changed, but I don't see that karate isn't popular. I don't think it's as commercially viable. If you're looking to get famous, then if karate might not be your first stop. If you're looking to train and develop all the if we're trying to develop, then yes, I think we're fine. Right, there's two more questions to finish, but we'll do them later. Sean's just putting up messages out there. Can we shut up and move on?
So, no, I'm just trying to see kind of in time, because obviously we're going to tie this into the Alistair Mitchell Sensei
interview
as well.
Those are the first two questions. Are we happy with those answers, boys? Did it make sense?
I think they were great questions, so thank you for the guys that sent them in.
Talk to people, so I'm sorry I keep talking. Right, so what we're going to do now is we have Alistair Mitchell Sensei with us this week. We've got some fantastic interviews, and interview number one is Alistair Mitchell, 7th Dan, who has had a fantastic career in karate and has a great story to tell. I wish we'd concluded the conversation afterwards, but we're just going to segue to that just now, so we hope you enjoy it. Thank you. And welcome to That Karate Podcast. This is our first interview segment today. I'd like to introduce, obviously, Alistair Mitchell Sensei today, who is our first, I would say, victim, maybe, I don't know if that's the correct way to put it. And today I've also got with us Sean McLaren and Mark Slattery as well. So I'll give a quick kind of rundown on Sensei Alistair. Sensei Alistair is a 7th Dan. He's been practicing Shotokan, it says here, for 45 years. We'll stick with that, Sensei. He's graded with the world's best instructors. From 4th Dan, he's trained and graded in Japan exclusively. Alistair's competition career spanned over 43 years. He's represented Scotland and the Great Britain All-Styles national team. He's had successes such as the World Team All-Styles Championship, 2 European Team All-Styles Championships, 1 Commonwealth Middleweight All-Styles Champion, British Middleweight All-Styles Champion, 3 times Scottish Middleweight All-Styles Champion, and in culmination at his retirement, had 4 individual WSKF World Championship titles and 3 individual World Police and Fire Games Karate Championships. Not bad, eh? A bit of bone I could chew there. It's great to have you with us today, Alistair Sensei. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Today we're just going to have a wee chat and ask some kind of some questions about your career and your time in karate. And obviously, Sean and I know you from training beside you, and you come to visit us in Scotland. So we've been grateful to build a relationship with you the last few years. I know you don't know Mark, but Mark's quite a nice guy considering he's from Luton. He's all right. I wouldn't leave your wallet lying about, but he's all right. He's a decent boy.
I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad yet.
So we're just going to get stuck in with the first question: is what got you into karate training, and what's kept you going? Because obviously you've had a long career.
Yeah, I think when I was at school, I was good at athletics. I was Scottish schoolboy javelin champion, and also played rugby for the south of Scotland. But when I left school, I left at 16. When I left school, where we live, it's quite a rural area, and we didn't have the opportunity to go to like an athletic club or a rugby club. They're all in the bigger towns, so it's difficult because I lived in the countryside. It was difficult to actually get training to carry on the training that I was doing. I started my apprenticeship. I was an engineering apprenticeship, and one of the guys that was probably 2 years older than me, he was teaching a thing called karate, and he was telling us about it. And obviously we'd seen James Bond films with the Odd Job and whatever on it, and it kind of intrigued us. And my brother was going to start, so I said, would I be able to start? And in those days, they only took beginners on, I think it was once a year. We had to wait like 6 months till we started. And he said, yeah, there'll be no problem. There's only about 2 or 3 of you going to be starting, because there was only a few people training at the time. And the night we started, the night before, Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon had just opened at the Picture House. So we went down. There was about 200 people in the school, in the playground at the school, all want to sign up, all want to be Bruce Lee's. So that was the start of it. And I say there was probably the initial about 200 people jammed into a big sports centre, and we started in Carlisle. And from there, the instructor who was taking us was a guy called Ray Young, who's now, I think, in Sweden. He was a 3rd Dan at the time. And there was another guy who was a brown belt. And there's the guys below him, one of the guys that I knew were green belt. They were instructors. And the brown belt that took the classes most of the time hated beginners. So he had us running around parks in our bare feet, along cinder packs, through broken glass, thistles, sheep droppings, cow droppings, dog droppings, a lot by the time you came back in. Once you got back in, you were doing hundreds of push-ups, hundreds of sit-ups, and about 10 punches. And that was what we started karate as. And it was okay. I got up to, I think, 6Q, but we started in Wado. We got up to 6Q in Wado, and then Alec McGregor from Budokan, Scotland, held a demonstration in Dumfries, and we went along to that, and that was the real start of my karate career as such, because he had down with him, he had Gene Dunnett, Eck Duncan, Alan Florence, and I think Brian Duff was there as well. And we just looked at these guys, and they were doing something we'd never ever seen before. We had an image of what karate was, but we saw like Eck Duncan, Gene Dunnett training. They were phenomenal people in our time, and that then got me hooked into it. We joined straight away. We trained 2-3 times a week at that time, and that's what got me onto it. And at that time, Gene was in the 1975 World Championship team that won the first time for Great Britain in Long Beach, California, and we trained with him on Sunday. We were basically sparring partners. I think I was a purple belt at the time, and we were sparring partners we did an hour training and an hour sparring with him at the Dumfries Club. And it was serious stuff. And then Eck Duncan came down as well. Eck, I think at the time was, I think he was brown belt, and phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal people. Hard, very hard. I can remember people getting knocked down, and there was like a community centre and had the chairs along the sides of the community centre. I can remember people like crawling under the chairs to try and get away and getting dragged back out again. It was those kind of days, not as it is today, politically correct sort of stuff. It was really, really hard stuff. And you did the Sunday, and by the Wednesday, you're covered by the Wednesday for your next session. Then you're back again in pain again. So that was my start in karate.
Wow. So I mean, what's kept you going? So obviously you've been training for all this time, and so it's obviously get into your blood. What keeps you training even now? What keep it moving forward even now?
I think now initially when we started, it was the committee, it was the fighting. I mean, I still enjoy fighting, I still do enjoy the committee. That's in my basically in my blood, I think. What keeps me going? I think probably the first 15 years was the competition with the national team, the Scottish national team, then the Great Britain team. Probably 15 years. Then I won the British Shotokan Championship. I think it was the first time all the associations came together. It was for the Eddie Witcher Memorial Tournament that was held in London. I think we won the RAF team won the team event, and I won the individual. And that from there was the first time I went to Japan. Was the first prize was going to Japan, training at the SKI Hombu Dojo, because it was Kanazawa that was organising the tournament in London. So I got there, and there was basically none of the instructors that I knew as such were there. I think the first night I ended up sleeping in the street outside the dojo, and then from there, what happened was that the SKI, Kasuya Sensei had left at that point. He'd left probably about 6 months prior to that. So he left, and then they got in touch with me. They said, "You want to go to special training?" So they took me away. They secreted me away from the SKI to their side with the WSKF, which had just been formed. And I trained with Kasuya Sensei on his instructor training in Hosei University. And that was the first, in 15 years, that was the first time I'd ever seen real, true karate training. And that's what got into my blood. When I'd done 15 years of training, and it was all those competitions you said, they were all in that 15-year space. All the national team ones were in that space. I came to Japan and was training in like 6 o'clock in the morning. There's all guys looking at you going, "Why are you doing that?" why are you training like that? And I'm like going, what am I third down? I'm this, I'm that. You know, it's like there's a whole thing to saying, why are they saying that to me? Why are they saying that to me? And then when we looked at the way Kazuyo Sensei was training, how he was training, the process of the training, that then for me when I came back was like a two-year step back to step forward. Okay, it was a 2-year reassessment of what my karate, where I was going with my karate. So it took those 2 years to step back, and then from there, that's kept me going. Is the process, the look at how you can improve your body, how you can improve your thinking of karate, everything. So it keeps me going all the time training.
That's an unusual. Well, it's not. It shouldn't be, but it's quite an unusual way of looking at it for somebody who's willing to reassess even after all that success. Yeah. And then reassess their karate and can re-engineer it almost from scratch and rebuild. That's not something you hear very often.
Yeah, it was that process that I could have come back and carried on what I was doing, and it was like that. I was looking at it and thinking, well, if I do that, where am I going to be in 5 years' time? Where am I going to be in 10 years' time? I'm going to be nowhere. Whereas the explanation to me was, you look at yourself, you look at your karate, where are you going to be in 10 years' time is the main thing in karate, is your 10-year period. What level? And each time we should push to a different level. As we get older, we should push to a different level. Not that we get to the end of our sport career and stand there in front of it and get bigger and whatever, and our karate goes down and we just stand there and shout at people. This point of training is process, then result, process, result, always this pushing forward. And this is what makes karate for me very interesting now. Very interesting is the study of karate.
Well,
yeah. Alistair, Sensei, I've got a question for you. Obviously, karate at the moment and all sports have suffered because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, I've trained with you just recently when you've done a course with 4 other instructors for the JKS England. And your karate is phenomenal. What I would like to know is, how do you keep your training at a high standard that it is through the pandemic, and how have you adjusted for teaching other students as well with the online sessions and that?
I think a very good question that again, I think most of us have adapted to the Zoom. I think when we started at the beginning, it was just this thing of going, we'll never teach karate online. I mean, I think everybody said, no, we'll never do that. No, never do karate online. We looked at it, obviously went through teething problems of setting up Zoom and everything like that. But now, this year, or it's more than a year now, it's been one of the best periods of training I've ever had. I'm training 7 days a week. I'm teaching 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. But I'm training 7 days a week with the group that I train with. It's not as if I'm standing there, giving them orders or whatever. I'm physically training, and I feel my karate is the best it's ever been. In I'm talking 10, 15 years. And I feel better, stronger, faster, sharper, more flexible because I'm training every day. My body's adapting to serious training at the moment. Teaching the students, it's a different thing because you're not there physically. But then the adaptation of being able to teach people over Zoom, you can get them to move on. Okay, but you have to be. Karate is inherently 90% visual. So if that person's got the vision, they can see it, and if we can give them the reason to do it, they'll do it. Yeah, but if they can see me doing it, then they can look at it and say, "Yeah, I can do it." I mean, it's a struggle for me to stand out there 7 days a week and actually be able to do it correctly. And you look at yourself, because you look at yourself on the screen and you go, "Am I doing it right?" Yeah. And you don't have that illusion that you think I'm the big strong sensei, and people looking at you saying he's absolute garbage. Okay, so you have to look at it and self-assess yourself off that screen to make sure that you are that image that you want your the people who are training with you to be, or what point do you want them to understand. You have to be able to demonstrate it clearly on that Zoom class.
Yeah,
and that's as I say, that has the effect of making your student better, or not the student, but your training partners better, but also it makes you think more and be better. So it pushes your level higher.
No, I completely agree. We kind of touched on that last week, didn't we, guys, about how it's kind of teaching wise, it's kind of helped us think outside the box on how we can adapt our teaching. And at the end of the day, you're in front of that camera. No matter what your class plan is, you're training with them as well. So yeah, I completely agree, and I think we can all agree that our karate has improved. Drastically, anyway.
Yeah, and for me, specifically for me, I mean, a lot of people don't know who I am or what I am, or maybe they've heard things about me and whatever. Sometimes it's not a particularly good reputation that I've got, but now people will be able to see me on Zoom, and I've got a good group of people from all over the world training with me. And there, you know, it's given me a greater platform to show what my karate is, or what my thinking of karate is. Exactly. And also the other thing as well is that through Paul Gianandra Sensei with JKS Scotland, phenomenal amount of courses we've had with the Hombu Dojo in Japan, and also through Bob Bamboy Sensei from WSKF Nigeria with Kasuya Sensei. We've had more input and influence from Japan than we've ever had. We've had more than probably 60 odd classes in a year. Mm-hmm. And you reckon you'd only probably see a course maybe 3 times a year, if that? Yeah. So we've had years compressed of training, compressed into a short period of time. And that's what we say, we should all be taking advantage of it. Everybody should be taking advantage of that training. And also I think the like Zoom, the way Zoom is, it's not a thing that's end when the lockdowns end. I think certainly I'll still be using it. There's a new dojo that I'm getting employed at. We've got Zoom facility in there, so we will be doing Zoom classes from the dojo.
I definitely agree. I mean, I feel that online karate should continue. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do genuinely learn so much from it, and it is great. I mean, we can all agree, you know, it's not ideal. It's some things like you don't get that one-to-one personal training, but for you know, for the travel aspect of it, you know, it's great for people, and you can have so many people all over the world on one meeting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sensei, I've got a question for you. As we've all competed at some point, and still hope and the wish that I can still compete when we come out of lockdown. With your experience and obviously incredible competition career, which competition kind of means the most and kind of stands out the most to you, and why?
I think I was thinking there. Probably the best one. Obviously, the World Championship we won in 86 in Australia. That was good. But the best one that stands out for me was the 1987 European Championships in Glasgow. And we won that. We beat France in the final. But the best was we fought England in the first round. And we beat them, and they brought, I think it was Alfie Lewis that they brought in to save British karate, or no, not British karate, English karate. Okay, and he fought Jerry Fleming. Jerry just took him to pieces. Then it was poor old Alfie. I'm sorry, and we beat them. And that probably stands out as one of the greatest. That was the final match of my all styles career. That was the final match of my all styles career. And we won, beat France in the final, and it was just phenomenal group of people that I was training with at the time. Pat Mackay, Jerry Fleming, Jim Collins, Stuart McKinnon, Steph Penman, all these guys. Phenomenal amount of talent there that Scotland had at that time. And it just, as I say, it just showed. And then, as I say, the Scotland team contributed into the success of the Great Britain team for the 80s and certainly into the early 90s. After that, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with British karate. British karate went down, I'm afraid. But certainly the Europeans, 87 Europeans was the penultimate competition for me.
Fantastic.
So I've got a question for you as well. Kind of going back a wee bit, you've trained extensively in Japan. You've spent a good chunk of time over there. What drew you there? I kind of know the backstory, but what drew you there, and what keeps you going back? And do you think it's important that karateka train in Japan, serious karateka train in Japan?
Yeah, a lot of people maybe will disagree with this or whatever. People say, "Oh, we've got good karate people in Europe or elsewhere in the world." But for me, going back to Japan all the time, or every time the opportunity arises to go back and train, it's not what they do; it's the way they do it. Okay, it's not what they do, because we can all do that. We can all do that. It's the way things are done. Okay, that we have to understand. Once we understand that, then we can get a deeper feeling for karate. I think a deeper feeling. People say, "Oh, we don't need the Japanese. We don't need this. They're not world champions. They're not this." No, I still look at Japan to say, when I go there, I find a different thing every time I'm there. I can find something different that I can come away with, and it is more not what they do; it's the way they do things. And that, if we study that, then our karate can become better. So this is what keeps me going back to Japan and keeps me learning, keeps me training. I look at the specifically with the JKS at the moment. They have a fantastic group of instructors that come to a Kensei program. We look at the Kensei program and see what it produced, that process that produced these people that survived the sessions and whatever. We look at Kagawa Sensei, look at Kasuya Sensei. Kagawa Sensei is my generation, and Kasuya Sensei is the generation above. And we look at that. I look at Kasuya Sensei as my example for can I be like him? What process made him like he is? And I study the way he trains. Okay, we study the way everyone else trains, but for me, we look at Kasuya Sensei and say, how does he train the way he's training? What is his thought? What is his process? Yeah. And the important point about training is we must engage in a process. If we don't engage in process, when we just do randomness, we make up something to fit in a kata, we do this, we do our own thing, we do bonkai, we do this. We don't have a process. Japanese have a process, i.e. the Kensei, where the basics, we practice massive repetition of basics. It gives a result. Process, product. So that's where I want to be, a product, not the randomness. If we just do things, a bit of this and a bit of that, and a bit of this, a bit of fashion. What's in fashion this week? Touch points, pressure point knockouts. What's in fashion now? MMA or something like this. No, process. Have a process. And then if we have a process, we have a product at the end of the day. This is, for me, like Japanese training. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. I think everybody wants success now, and I think a lot of people, there's a lot of shortcuts taken, and and as you say, without process, you've got no longevity.
No, yeah, we see that. I think maybe it might come into one of your questions as well. We see nowadays is that we have like younger generation of competitors. I think are going into competition too early and without experience. And then I think I was talking to one of the Scotland coaches, and I said, "Why is there a senior national squad?" And he's saying there isn't anybody because they burn out before they get to 18 because they're doing too many competitions. So we have no senior level competitors. So that point of not of having process, so it produces that fighter. They have the basics, they have the movement, they have everything, and then they move on. And once they move on, then they keep moving, and that's where you get your seniority rank. Whereas if you get a competitor, will come to here, and they'll only be a competitor as long as they're winning. Yeah, as soon as they stop winning, they'll go somewhere else. They'll do something else. Yeah, there's nothing to keep them.
Alistair Sensei, I just wanted to get your opinion on, your thoughts on traditional karate versus sport karate. I mean, what's your opinion on the two of them? I mean,
sport karate, yeah. Probably, I was there in the generation that did change into the sport karate. We went from the traditional, which was I crossed over the generation. I went through three different levels of, or three different generations of team. When I started as international as a third Q. I was third Q when I was first in the Scottish national team. So I started with the older guys, and they were from a traditional background. Then we went into the next generation, was still there. Then we moved into the likes of Jerry Fleming, Pat Mackay, Jim Collins, and that. They were all of a younger generation than me, but they were into the more sport type of training. They didn't do kata, they didn't do basics. But where do you want to be? Where do you want to be with sport? Sport is a winning thing. Yeah, it's great if you're winning, but for me, fighting's fighting. Okay, irrespective of whether it's a competition, irrespective of whether it's out in the street, if you need it for self-defense, it's the same principles we use. Sport, nowadays you have to be a lot fitter and whatever, but you have to be as technically good. You have to be fitter, but there's a lot of people who are not technically good at karate who are actually quite high-level winners. Yeah, I think even Kagawa Sensei said he did an interview for the JK Fan magazine, and he was saying that some of the national team, the basics are no good. They can't punch properly, and that's sport karate. Okay, what we need is the basis of that athleticism with the bonding with the what per se traditional karate. That is good karate. Sport on its own is short-lived, and then you get the other people that say we do traditional karate that can't fight. Okay, there will be that. There's a group of people that say we do traditional karate. Okay, they can punch a bit with a paper bag, to be honest. Okay, we have to have that bonding together of sensibility of where do we want to be. You have to be fit, strong to fight. Yeah, you have to be fit, sharp, and strong to fight. My day, I think when we started, it was short weapon, so you could get away. You could get away with 10 seconds on the mat. Okay, you scored a nip on in your first 10 seconds, you're off. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, you have to last that 3 minutes. You might have to let last entries in. You might have to do maybe 6 minutes, 9 minutes. Yeah. So my training was always to go more than you'd ever be expected to do in a competition, in a round in a competition. So we were always training maybe 15 minutes of committee training, non-stop. So when you went on, that was the competition was the easy part.
Yeah.
The hard part was the training.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, like that's going to tie in well. Our kind of topic this week, we do our little bit together, is going to be kind of Budo versus sport and kind of pros and cons. So we're going to weigh that up. So thank you for your opinion on that, Sensei. That's awesome. Just to kind of ask about yourself and about your own club and your own teaching as well. And what is kind of next for yourself, Sensei, and your club, Boulder Shotokan, as well? What do you think is the next kind of steps coming out of COVID, and any kind of exciting, anything planned exciting?
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be an exciting period for us. We've had a lot of guys that used to train with me. They've come back. They went into business and things like that. Packed in the training, went into business. They've come back. We've got a premises which we've built over the lockdown period. We've got a Japanese style dojo. We built it in Annan. They're employing me as the technical advisor instructor for it. I've got a group of people who will be training, who were training with me. But they're all from different, like JK, WSKF, JKS people. So it's non-political. So all we're doing is just training. And that's what we want to do, is have this centre of excellence on the borders, Southwest Scotland, Cumbria area, which really hasn't had a lot and hasn't produced a great deal over my period of time, because we've always had to go out the area to the likes of Glasgow, up the road or down the road. So we're going to create a centre here, and that's the exciting thing that we've got going now. We've designed it. It's traditional. It's got makiwara. It's got band points. It's got everything that we will need for training. That's from there. We want to produce a new generation of competitor and a new generation of karate person, not just young people but older people, so that the karate is good. So that's my next job. Okay, for after retirement.
Sounds exciting. It sounds exciting.
That sounds really exciting.
It does.
Well, we'll call it. We'll bring it to a close there. That's been a really interesting kind of 35, 40 minutes chat there. Just getting a little insight into your thinking and your thought process for and your background, which is obviously, like myself, Sean and I have sat and had dinner with you on occasions and heard the stories. We could sit there all night and listen. Yeah. But we hope that you'll come back at some point and weigh in. And maybe some of the other topics if we keep this going.
Yeah.
If it's all together, it's been a pleasure having you today.
Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Sensei.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure coming on. A pleasure coming on and meeting everybody. So it's good. It's really good. And obviously, what we're doing, I'm on back to front with that background.
No, we can see you fine. You're all right.
It is a good thing that we can. I mean, sometimes again, particularly when training with Kasuya Sensei. So sometimes you hard training, very hard training, but afterwards discussion about karate. Okay, discussion about karate. Okay, then we can at some point we can see different angle of karate, not just always sitting there going os all the time, but discussion about karate. How do you feel? What's their position? Why do they teach this way? What's your position? So then we can make a way forward. We can make a way forward with our karate. Yeah. This is a very, very important point of discussion. So this with the podcast is ideal, absolutely ideal for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, as I say, we're still finding our way with it. Hopefully we keep it going. We'll get taken off the air or however it works. We'll call it quits there. Thank you so much for those that are listening. Hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Hope it came across well. And we hope to have Alistair Sensei back on at some point in the future.
Yeah, so, my pleasure.
We'd love to have you. All right, so thank you very much, and that is the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you.
And we're Hope you enjoyed that, Alistair Mitchell Sensei. As I said beforehand, we had a great conversation afterwards. Kind of chatting away. We chatted for about an hour after that. I wish we'd kept the recording going. It was our first time giving an interview, but so we were a bit nervous doing it, weren't we, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And we were kind of, especially of all the people to ask. So yeah, it was good. So we've got some cracking interviews coming up in the next few weeks. Some top UK karateka. So we're kind of speaking to people from different kind of areas and backgrounds. So it's not just kind of our wheelhouse. So Sean has the news this week. So we're going to have a news segment every week. And it's been kind of difficult because obviously as the world crawls out of COVID, there's not that many events. But we're going to pass to Sean. Yeah. And it's over to you, Sean, with the news and weather.
Well, today we have something. As Liam said, obviously now the world's starting to come out of lockdown and out of restrictions. There's not so many actual upcoming events. So if there is something you guys would love us to give a little mention, please let us know. We are trying to obviously keep this not a kind of biased on affiliations and stuff. So please let us know. Send them into the kind of email or via any of the other side. Any of these at the bottom. Okay, upcoming, we've got the JKS Spring Seminar this weekend and the weekend of the 8th and 9th of May for America. This weekend is Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia, Oceania, and Asia. All right, some of these guys are booked on to do that, so I'm looking forward to that. Also this weekend, the HDKI have an online seminar with Peter Constantine Sensei, Scott Langley Sensei, and J.D. Swanson Sensei. And Richard Amos Sensei, who's got a seminar this Sunday, also on the 26th. Obviously, please feel free to contact them. Seminar, we don't get sponsored for it. It's just for kind of
for the three you picked, the most politically diverse ones you picked there, Sean. It's like
as I said, I was trying to find some events this week just to kind of keep you guys up to date, and it's great to see these stuff. We see kind of local competitions coming out and for kind of booked in at the end of the year. A couple of competitions that we've attended in the past have competitions coming up at the end of this year, so I'm looking forward to getting back to some sort of normality. And as you say, guys, the kind of big events this year are the Olympics. There's one more qualification round for people to get qualified to compete in the Olympics, and that's in Paris on the 11th and the 13th of June. So we're going to go there, and we're going so yeah, that's the 11th and 13th of June in Paris, and that's the last chance for people to qualify.
Is it the wild card they call it? I think it's the wild card qualifications, isn't it?
The wild card qualifications, that's correct, yeah. Those who have already kind of qualified, some big names in the under 75 kilogram for Kumite male, Ken Nishimura, Rafael Agaev, Luigi Busa and Stanislav Haruna are all in the one category, so that'll be interesting to watch. There's some really big names in the sport world.
Is Rafael Agaev qualified?
Yes.
That makes old guys like me feel happy, because he is but he's been an absolute force of nature, is he not?
Yeah, no, he's I think late 30s, I think, if that's right, might be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, he's been competing for longer than I think I've been alive, to be honest. Yeah, so they've got that. I'm joking, I'm not that young anymore. In the female event, you've got Mio Miyahara and Angelique Torligi as well in the same event, so it'll be interesting to kind of see some of these big names go up against each other on the big stage on the Olympics. In the kata events, you've got kata specialist Damien Quintero and Sandra Sanchez as well. They're competing for the kind of male and female kata events, and their katas are spectacular.
Sandra Sanchez is a machine, isn't she?
Yeah, if anybody's ever seen her do any kind of training montage, she knows what she's doing, and she's awesome at it. But as I said, guys, if there's any events coming up, please let us know. We'll do our best to kind of put them out. We'll keep looking every week for events.
Yeah, as Sean said, it's an all styles thing. Although we have our background, we're not going to not share your stuff just because we're definitely not doing this. All our views on here are our own and are not those of any association.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get stripped of our grades, but yeah. So feel free, as Sean says, to put that and that kind of in.
I've just got one. There's one more bit of news, guys. Sorry, it's only. Just quickly moving on to this, as we kind of touched on last week, there's a T-Rex on the loose in the town of Stuart. Fighting here, a young defenseless Yoshi the Ninja.
Those that are on Spotify and Podbean, I apologise.
For those that are on Podbean,
I just want to point out there's a social distance in place there.
For those that are on Spotify, and I was sharing a video of a T-Rex. We kind of touched on last week. Can
I just point out that I did what I had to do to keep my club going. All right, that's all I'm saying. It was standing street corners teaching oizuki for crisps. It was.
So if anyone has any news and has spotted a T-Rex running about the streets of Sturton, please pass it to the authorities. And that's the end of the news for today. I'll catch you next week. Thank you.
Right, I'm just going, right, that's the Amazon delivery. I'm off. I'll catch you later. No.
For those guys that were on Spotify and Podbean and Amazon.
Go on to YouTube. Right, just go on.
Have a really look for YouTube.
We very little credibility anyway, so losing it makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
You can see his face now.
Anyway, moving on with the last of the questions.
Well, we shared my video of me kicking the wall.
Wait a minute, that was a bit different. You kicked a wall. That was... I just put that in context. That's not meant like advanced class, all right? We were teaching like the tiny tots to keep them engaged and entertain them, all right? Just for the record. And doing Unsu and that is a real nightmare, by the way. Should I do that guy? Unsu and that was horrific. Moving on. We've got 2 more questions left. Can't believe you did that to me, Sean. Alan Pollock. Aldo, our friend Aldo. Oh, this is a tough one. What has been your... What's your favourite memory or memories throughout your years of training? What is your favourite memory or memories? Mark?
That is hard. I don't know. I'm normally knocked out when I'm on the mat, so I don't really remember much.
That's not.
One of the funniest things I probably think that I remember when I was competing was I was sparring with this one guy, and obviously where people get themselves into the zone. They'll have their hoodies over their gi, they'll have their headphones in their ear, and obviously they must be playing some Rocky or something like that, just trying to get themselves in the zone. And I remember I was sparring with this one guy, and he must have forgot that to take out his back then it was a Walkman, this thing. He forgot to take it out. He had it actually tucked in his gi. And I remember I was fighting him, and I actually did him a washigiri and kicked his chest, and actually kicked and smashed the Walkman into his chest. And as it was the referee called Yame, he just stopped like this, and he just opened up his gi top, and all these just bits of broken plastic just fell out onto the tatami. And for me, that was quite, at the time, was pretty funny. Obviously not for him, because that was about 100 quid down the drain there. But memory-wise, I think, the best feeling really is when you pass your showdown. I think is the best thing, the best memory for me. I mean, that was a few years ago, and I mean, you spend so long training for that, and you're really trying to get yourself in the mindset. And for me, passing my showdown was probably the best feeling for me. I don't know, it sort of has like a milestone, really, in karate, and that was for me the best. The day I passed my showdown, I'd say it was one of the best memories for me. I felt like I was in the black belt club. So, Liam, I'll pass it on to you because I keep passing it on to Sean.
Too many, because he's that old.
Well, it was the day I dressed up as a guy in a inflatable thing. No, it was. I don't know. As you say, there's so. I've been very lucky. I've had quite a long and varied career, and with grading. Please don't post that again.
Is that what?
I think passing my third dan in front of Yahara and Osaka, in front of a Japanese panel, because my showdown and knee dan were not in front of a Japanese panel. So doing that was when I felt that Sandan. I felt that I'd kind of, as you say, not joined the club, but I'd felt that I'd done it right. If that makes sense. I felt that, and I've graded since, and that's and all my grading since been in front of Japanese instructors. So I felt then that because there's so much work to get involved for that one, and so much prep done, and it was challenging. It was physically and mentally challenging, and that for me stood out. Getting piped out the time I think Sean was there. We get piped out to the World Championships, representing our country. That puts the hairs in the back of your neck up, or what's left of my hair. But going back to your point, we were at a competition years ago, Sean. Do you remember? We were. You must remember this. Just like what you said, Mark. It's a kind of memory off the side. We were up to this competition. It wasn't far from where we were, so it was nice to be able to travel up. And Sean and I, there was maybe half a dozen of us competing that day with this. And there was a lad, as you said, walking around with a hoodie on, with the headphones on. You know this story, Sean? Is it coming to you? Yeah. And he looked like one of those self-defense guys we talked about earlier on. You kind of wonder, what's the issue, mate? You need to maybe one less coffee this morning. And he's walking about the place, and at one point he was banging his head off the wall, and Sean and I were like, bloody hell, is he okay? And Sean went, I'm checking the
maybe he was doing it.
He's one of those ones that these people that has his name on his belt in English. So Sean kind of looked at the name of his belt and ran up to check the draws, and Sean came back going, oh, God, have you got him first round? He went, yeah. And I was like, yes. So Sean was like, I think he was walking about, was grilling at people, punching walls, and he was like, and I'm like, this is going to get a bit tasty like this one. And Sean walked out, so they come out, the bell on, and Sean's looking quite nervous. because he had the big tattoo down his neck as well. He looked like an absolute psychopath. And then he automatically, and I apologise for those on Podbean and Spotify, you won't see this. He then went, so it was come out, right, Hajime, and the guy just put his guard up like that. And I went, Sean, he's crap, go for it. And Sean just, the look on Sean's face, he just went, oh, I just malashed him, absolutely halved him. The boy dropped a knee and then ran away for the next 60 seconds. And it was just this fear and trepidation that it turns out you actually couldn't fight. But that was a funny memory that stood out for me. Sean, what about you? What's your kind of? I know it must be difficult for you as well. What do you pick?
Yeah, no, that's funny. He was doing the TikTok challenge before I made it popular. As Mark was going to say there, he was trying to get in. Yeah, I think, to be honest, for me, obviously, passing black belt stuff, it was big. I loved competing. Always loved competing. Traveling with the squad, we've competed with each other and against each other numerous times. I think the camaraderie for me is kind of memories. For me, traveling to Portugal for the World Championships, we were all successful. A team of 15 came away with 40 medals. So we all medalled that day, and the people who I travelled with as well, and some of the people aren't here anymore. Just memories from that. It really sticks with me, stuff like that. Alan, who asked the question, was actually there and part of that squad with us as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for that, obviously passing the black belt was a big thing. As you say, Mark, you've been from where you are a white belt, you work towards that black belt. So it was a big thing, and I always trained with my brother. So we always competed against each other and graded together. So doing that together as well, and I know you guys have graded together and graded against each other as well.
Oh yes.
So yeah, just that for me is that camaraderie, having training beside each other, competing with each other, competing against each other, grading. There is just so many memories, and you could spend the next hour telling stories of competitions.
We could do a whole, we've tried not to do that, haven't we? We tried.
My favourite memory, the trip to Portugal, because we arrived on the Monday and we weren't competing till the Saturday and the Sunday, and we were in Albufeira, which is it was a nice part right beside the beach. So we had a good fun few days just as a holiday, which you don't get often if you're travelling to compete. You fly out on the Thursday night, Friday, compete on the Saturday or Sunday, and fly back Sunday night or Monday. Whereas with Portugal, it was a nice holiday as well. So yeah, for me that was a big memory that kind of stuck out. And as I said, on that trip, there's people who aren't here anymore, so obviously it kind of sticks a bit more. So that kind of sticks and all as well. And all.
It's like we've all been to Japan as well. Been going to Japan, training at the Hombu in Japan with like Sakanayama and Nagaki Yamaguchi. You're training in the dojo with these people in Japan. How do you pick?
There's so many.
How do you pick one kind of standout memory? You've got that. Get my fifth hand. That was a massive achievement. I never aimed for gradings, to be honest. I didn't grade for 12 years at one point. I just didn't grade. I had to get dragged in at one point. I don't know if you remember, Sean. I was like, you were grading at the weekend. I'm like, oh no, I'm all right, I'm okay.
I think that's how it happened for a lot of us, to be fair, wasn't it?
Yeah, I never really chased grades like that. So it was, how do you pick? I do remember one memory of Mark and I grading for fourth dan together, and Mark came over and said, because we were the only two going for fourth, see if you remember the way I do, Mark. And he was coming up and saying, listen, mate, excuse the accent, people. Listen, mate, you and me, right? Let's, few techniques, keep it clean. All right, mate, no worries, of course. Aye, okay. So I'm walking away. Now, bear in mind, Mark's like a foot taller than me. And then, I think it was Sintadris Sensei, wasn't it? He went like, Hajime, and then Mark tried to murder me. So I was bang. In my head, I went, you bastard. I was like, he's going to kill me here. So it then erupted. It just absolutely, feet and fists were flying. There's a photograph of this. I think my Yakizuki is landing as you kicked me right in the crackers.
That was a good shot.
Yeah. No, I did. It was a scrappy shot, but and then it stops, and you're just bleeding from your. And obviously a knuckle just made contact and just punctured this. It wasn't anything serious, but what was it? My control was fine, but see when you get kicked in the crackers in your body, your head going. And we were told beforehand, like, guys, watch your control. Please be careful. All right, this is a grading. It's not a fight, because I think they must have remembered our third dan when we were rolling about the floor biting each other, because you and I were separated at our third dan grading and told to calm down.
They were good memories.
And I'm like, oh God. But it was I just want to say for the record, you said let's take it easy. Was that you taking it easy, Mark?
Yeah, but that's how I win all my fights. What I do is when I'm competing, I'll say, look, come on, let's just take it easy. Let's make it look good, and then I'll go straight in with a big kick to the show.
Best, and I was like, well, there was no. Oh my God! But yeah, that's a memory for you, Alan. Just don't listen to Mark if you're sparring him.
It was funny spectating, to be honest.
I was walking like a duck for about a week. So, the very first last question is from Stevie Mason, Sensei, head of KWF Scotland. Hi, Stevie Sensei, how you doing? This is a good question, a loaded question. This one, I like this one. I like it. Do you train for longevity or for sporting success? Ooh, controversial. You words them so well.
Pass.
What do you train for?
Who's answering this one?
Mark.
Oh, chuck me in that deep end then. Very good question. Thank you, Steve. No.
He's frozen.
Yeah.
I train, for longevity. Frozen. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now. You can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Yeah, sorry, just froze there. Yeah, so I don't really train for sporting success. I train for. I just train for myself. You know, I think for myself. I've been doing tournaments as a teenager and younger. And for me, that's sort of my karate career with the tournaments there. I mean, I'm still going to compete, but I'm not looking to be a world champion. And this, I'm just taking part in the fun of, as we touched on earlier, competitions is a small part of your karate. For me now, I'm just training to pass on my knowledge to my students. And I want them to be, they will be better than me. I'm sort of just putting everything that I have, all my knowledge, my skill into them, and then they can make that decision. What they want to do, and that's for me. I as much as all of us would love to be, a world champion and this, but I mean, I'm still going to try my best, give it a good go. But my heart now at the moment is. I mean, my dojo is a fairly new dojo, and my heart is building that up and concentrating on that, and that's what I want to do. I want to, go down that route and that's why it might all change when I'm in the veterans or something like that. Think about it there, but for the time being, that's where my head is at.
Cool, Sean. Longevity or sporting success?
No, I think we kind of touched on it earlier. I think. If you are doing karate or training karate, then you do both, But with regards to sport and success, it's only going to last so long, whether you're moving up a category or whether the next level of competitors come up and you can't get to that level, then obviously your sport and success is not going to be as long as your normal career, as Mark said. And we kind of touched on it last week. For us, karate is more than just a hobby. It's not a pastime. It's our life. It's our jobs. It's not, and it's always has been. I've tried rugby. I've tried kickboxing. I've tried football, and I'll enjoy them. But karate is something that I've loved and always have loved. And I think if you're training, then you should be training for longevity, because you should always, Mark, you said, trying to improve. So it's not just chasing that next medal or chasing the next thing. I think training for longevity is very important, and you can get growth from that. You will improve more, I think, than what you'd be doing if you were just training for sport and success. I think overall, and then in the time, I think your karate will be better. in my opinion.
I think there's seasons. I think that if you, I mean, I'd never, don't get me wrong, I've wanted to quit training sometimes. There's times in my karate career where when I was younger, I was like, I can't bother this anymore. I've had enough of it, or I've fallen out of love with it at times. There's times where my passion's gone for it, but it's that's I don't have that issue now. But certainly I went through a period where I was like, I really want to keep doing this. I think everybody's had that conversation in their head at some point. No, Sean, not you.
Honestly,
wait till you're dressed up as a giant inflatable dinosaur and go. You really start to question your life choices.
No, I think I know what you mean. When it comes to, because we're teaching now as well, we kind of said last week, where you kind of take that away from your own training and your own stuff, especially when we go back on Zoom. Yes, we were in front of the camera training, but as you say, you can fall out of passion with it. But
it comes and goes. It's not. I've always loved it.
Yeah.
But for me, the reason I'm saying longevity, training for longevity, because I never really wanted to quit, if that makes sense.
No, of course.
I maybe had injuries and I've had to dial down my training or whatever. I've had a couple of bit nasty injuries in my time, but I maybe had to dial down my training. But there's not of it. Maybe the problem is I've never had any sporting success. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe you've actually got to be successful. But I've always trained for training's sake.
Yeah.
And if my karate was at a level where I thought I could take it out and put it on the road, as it were, at competition level, and that's when I've done it at different times of my career. I've never been really that consistent in my competition career, but I think that sporting success is maybe the shop window. They're nice to see. People ask you what I've got. There's actually some medals and trophies in reception at my dojo, and it's not an ego box. It's purely to get them out the damned house. Which is a nice complaint to have, that you've got that many that are in the road. But, it's to get them out the damned house and put them into perspective and get them. But, yeah, for me, it's longevity. You have to, I think when you're younger, sporting competition is very important. I think it's essential to test yourself. But I think if you're teaching karate from a Kihon perspective, a kata perspective, and you're applying it properly, you have different seasons in your life. You have different seasons in your career. I'm kind of more late summer, as I like to think.
You're right.
No, I'm talking. I'm kind of like August, September. I'm not like.
No, you're December and then came right back run again.
Kind of hot, kind of warm. Just.
Can I just say this is called That Karate Podcast? Not let's give that old ginger guy a hard time. Can we just point that out?
I know, but it's just fun, isn't it?
I seem to spend a lot of time getting made fun of. But no, I think. Are you guys got anything you want to bring up? Anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, not really.
Well, it's been good. We've had some interesting questions, guys, so please keep them coming in. And we will do our best. Obviously, we had quite a lot of questions for the first kind of week, so we will do our best to go through them. We're just trying to keep these podcasts below 3 hours, because we could talk for days. So yes, we obviously just we do our best to keep it short and sweet and cover as many topics as we can.
Yeah, so all the questions there could have been topics for a week. I mean, I actually considered doing that. I actually keep them as topics, but if we didn't answer the question properly, didn't get the answer you wanted, if you have something you want to ask us for next week, please. If there's a guest you'd like to try us to get on, if you'd like to be a guest, get involved. Give us a wee message. Don't be shy. We'd like to chat to people. We want to speak to as many various people. Trying to speak English, Liam. From different backgrounds in karate, not just our own wheelhouse. We want to hear different perspectives, different views. Disagree with us, agree with us. We'd like to get you on and have a chat. Well, boys, that was number 2. Do you think it'll be a number 3? Think anybody's going to listen to this nonsense for a third week?
I think it's fun. I think it's great.
Again, we're allowed to think that, but the real issue is out there. But yeah, this has been great. So this podcast is probably a bit longer than last week's, and I apologise because we've got a cracking interview in the middle of it. But
and it's been heavily edited as well, so
it's going to be. Let me tell you,
No, you can't remove that.
No, yeah, that's coming out. That is good. I'll be editing that out.
Oh, the T-Rex video has to stay in. It's only fair that we spoke about it last week. We spoke about it last week. It has to stay in.
It's horrific, honestly. You got to have a sense of humour, haven't you? If you can't laugh at yourself, then I don't need to. My mates laugh at me all the time anyway. But guys, thank you so much again for being part of this. These guys have been do a lot of work behind the scenes to make this work. We will get back. We will see you next week, or we'll listen to us next week for number 3. And as Sean said, please send us any of your questions, or you want to get involved in the chat. Join us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music. It's all happening. Podbean. And please like our Facebook page and get sharing. And we do have a couple other channels, but frankly, I haven't really filled them out yet. I've not really done much for them yet. But if you get us on there, please like and share and subscribe. Thanks very much for your time, guys. Thanks very much to you listening and watching. I apologise for the gratuitous pictures of some guy I've never heard of dressed up in a giant inflatable dinosaur outfit. I can't believe you did that to me, Sean. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Enjoy your week. Have a fantastic weekend, and stay safe and keep training. Os.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.